The protagonist of this story, Hua, is about as ordinary as they come. He works at a logistics center just to scrape by, though he doesn't enjoy it in the slightest. Kim Jong-un, as he's known, finds little satisfaction in his work, and it won't take long for you to see why. One day, he tries to spark a casual conversation with a robot beside him, but the machine ignores him completely and immediately gets back to work. That's exactly what he despises about the place. The entire center is filled with advanced AI robots that handle nearly all of the labor. Jeong-gyeom is left overseeing operations with no one to talk to, surrounded by silence. He misses the comfort of human interaction, often questioning whether this job is right for him. His gloomy routine began 2 months ago, shortly after being discharged from the military, a point in his life where a string of misfortunes seemed to begin. The first blow came when his parents moved away to Wjeongbu. As a parting gesture, they left him a small apartment near his old school, covering the deposit and 6 months' rent. This new chapter forced him into a solitary lifestyle. Although his finances were stable thanks to government support and his parents paying rent, he decided to take his time looking for a job, hoping to find something meaningful instead of rushing into work. But luck was not on his side. Rejection after rejection piled up before he ever had the chance to prove himself. After a month of unsuccessful searching, he was losing his mind from boredom. One day, while venting to his sister about his frustrating situation, she teased him endlessly about being the unemployed brother. During their conversation, she mentioned how many people were finding work as operators for delivery companies, managing AI robots. Intrigued, Jeong-gyeom eventually followed this lead, which brought him here to this lifeless job where there's no one to share a single word with. Just as I'm explaining this, someone suddenly calls out to him. The man looks grumpy, unpleasant, and easily mistaken for the manager. He turns out to be a senior worker, who brusquely informs Jeong-gyeom that they're out of tuna stock, despite the system indicating otherwise. He orders Jeong-gyeom to check the warehouse for the missing supply. With a strained smile, Jeong-gyeom agrees, though in truth, he finds the robots far warmer than his cold-hearted colleague. Inside the warehouse, he spots the tuna on a high shelf and climbs up to grab it. But as he does, the heavy door slams shut behind him. Startled, he tries the knob, but it's jammed. He calls his manager, Shin, but there's no response. For a brief moment, he considers dialing 911, but decides against it, thinking it's not worth the trouble since he's not in immediate danger. Instead, he snaps a selfie and sends it to his sister, jokingly telling her he's trapped. She teases him at first, but then casually mentions hearing about a building collapse near her home. Concerned, Jeong-gyeom immediately calls her back. When she answers, however, she says nothing. Just as he begins to suspect she's playing a prank, the entire warehouse trembles violently, and a blaring emergency alarm cuts through the air. Urgent announcements echo, demanding immediate evacuation. Still locked inside, Jeong-gyeom pounds on the door with growing panic, but no one comes. He tries calling 911 again, only to discover his phone has lost all signal. Fear overwhelms him as the terrifying thought creeps in: could a large-scale disaster be unfolding outside these walls? Suddenly, a loud pounding resonates from the other side of the door, each strike leaving deep dents in the steel as if it were fragile cardboard. Trembling, he instinctively retreats, understanding that the situation has taken a dire turn. Any sound from him now would mean certain doom. Perspiring heavily, he collapses to his knees, feeling relief when the banging ceases. Yet, the terrifying noises and screams outside continue to haunt him. 3 days pass. He remains trapped inside, surviving on whatever food he can salvage. With no sign of anyone coming to his rescue, he becomes convinced that a catastrophe of immense scale has occurred. He wonders if a war has broken out and, oddly enough, feels a faint sense of gratitude to be confined indoors, imagining it might provide some measure of safety. The alarm system that once screamed incessantly fell silent yesterday, affording him a brief reprieve. However, with his phone battery dwindling, he's uncertain how much longer he can endure. This message might very well be his final testament to the outside world, accompanied by a desperate hope that someone will find him soon and safeguard his family. Just as he believes things cannot deteriorate further, a system window abruptly appears, informing him that he has been selected to check his awakened abilities. Initially, Jeong-gyeom suspects it's a hallucination. Yet, a subsequent window reveals that he has acquired a personal subspace for item storage. He begins to question if the tuna cans he's been consuming over these past 3 days contain some sort of drug. Another digital notification emerges, reporting that a target has been designated and queries if he wishes to store it. Without hesitation, he confirms. Suddenly, he experiences a sensation of falling and lands harshly outside. As he scrambles to his feet, his gaze falls upon a landscape of devastation, ruins littered with debris and wreckage in every direction. Nearby, he spots his senior, lying lifeless on the ground. System windows continue to flash, but the protagonist is overwhelmed, vomiting at the sight of his dead comrade. Then, the system announces that an appropriate operating system has been located and is now installing. Suddenly, approaching footsteps cast a vast shadow behind him, and he is nearly certain that this shadow does not belong to a human. As the scene pulls back, a monstrous orc-like creature, its body smeared with blood and armed with sharp fangs, is revealed. Jeong-gyeom begins to sweat profusely, struggling to calm his racing heart, clinging to the hope that his worst fears are unfounded. He convinces himself the roar he heard 3 days prior might have come from a gorilla or bear. Regardless, he dares not look back and instead bolts away as fast as his legs can carry him, running desperately for survival. Panic mounts as he realizes he is being hunted by a literal monster. In his frantic escape, he inadvertently steps on someone's, entrusting him to the unknown reason behind the creature's presence or its hunt for him. One truth remains clear: he must escape. Suddenly, a system window appears, stating that synchronization is complete and asks if he wishes to enter the subspace. Without pause, Jeong-gyeom agrees. As the monster's hand swings towards him, he dives through the portal, leaving the beast trapped and groaning in frustration behind him. Confused, Jeong-gyeom wonders why the creature cannot follow. A floating drone appears, explaining that nothing can enter his subspace without his explicit permission since he is its master. The drone further elaborates that the subspace is entirely under his control. Shocked, Jeong-gyeom experiences a strange sense of déjà vu as the drone addresses him. Looking around, he realizes he is back inside the PX Fulfillment Center warehouse, but now it exists as part of his new subspace. The area is populated with the same robots as before. The system then notifies him that, since this is his first time entering the subspace, he will receive a mana stone as a reward. The stone materializes in his palm, but before he can discern its purpose, the monster outside resumes pounding on the portal, startling him. Momentarily forgetting his peril, he inquires with the system whether the creature can truly not enter. The system reassures him that nothing may penetrate without his consent. A new notification details that the PX Fulfillment Center is a 5-story facility covering a total area of approximately 10,000 pi, around 33,000 square meters, equipped with everything needed to enhance customer lives. It boasts a shipping speed of 60 kilometers per h with a maximum shipment size of 2 meters. Jeong-gyeom processes this surprising information with equal parts awe and confusion. The system then adds that only 2 minutes remain until maintenance begins. Still disoriented, Jeong-gyeom asks if the facility will shut down after 2 minutes. The drone confirms this and explains that he can use the mana stone to power the facility and maintain operations within the subspace. With 1 mana stone, the facility can remain operational for 24 hours. Impressed by the drone's efficiency, Jeong-gyeom attentively listens as it explains that the PAX Center's energy system was altered to operate on mana stones when it was stored in the subspace. Skeptical, Jeong-gyeom questions whether this is a genuine capability or merely science fiction. Suddenly, the facility's lights cut out, and the drone starts flashing urgent warnings. The PX system alerts that power has been lost. and if energy isn't restored promptly, perishables such as fresh vegetables, meat, and pre-prepared meals will begin to spoil. Jeong-gyeom understands that in this chaotic, war-torn world, food supply is crucial for survival. A power failure affecting freezers and refrigerators could therefore be disastrous. He asks the drone if monostones can truly substitute electricity, to which the drone confirms positively. Jeong-gyeom then inquires how more monostones can be acquired. The drone informs him that these stones are obtained by defeating creatures from other worlds. Clearly unsettled by the prospect of battling a formidable monster that could easily tear him apart, Jeong-gyeom instructs the drone to utilize the monostones for now, while he hurries to gather weapons inside the facility. As he grabs as many weapons as possible, a system window displays their prices, triggering concern about resource limitations. He worries that if he expends all his weapons too quickly against the monster, he may run out of supplies. He is also uncertain whether the blades can penetrate the monster's thick hide. Jeong-gyeom decides that a gradual wounding strategy inflicting slow but steady damage is wiser than attempting to kill the creature outright, especially since it cannot enter his subspace. This means there is no urgent need to finish it in one go. Jeong-gyeom throws an axe at the monster, but it merely grazes its body, provoking the creature's anger. His initial tactic faltering and aware of the limited supplies, he tries the heavy axe again, hoping it will have a more significant impact. He asks the system how many axes remain, and to his surprise, learns that 15 are left, much more than he anticipated. He quickly verifies their storage location and is astonished to find that the axes are duplicating infinitely. The system explains that these items can be endlessly reproduced through a duplication process. While they may suffer damage or alteration, they can never be fully exhausted. This revelation leaves Jeong-gyeom stunned but relieved. The system confirms that he effectively has an unlimited arsenal. Encouraged by this knowledge, Jeong-gyeom no longer fears depleting his weapons and can throw as many as needed at the monster. He realizes that his own stamina might fail before his weapon supply does. The system then reveals another advantage. Jeong-gyeom does not have to personally throw each weapon. He can automate their deployment by shipping them from his subspace to the outside world. Although shipments are limited to one every 30 seconds by default, this frequency can be increased by leveling up his skills. Eager to try, Jeong-gyeom asks how to launch the weapons. The system responds that he simply needs to mentally select the registered item and say "ship." Immediately, Jeong-gyeom commands "ship," and a drone propels an axe at tremendous speed toward the monster's grotesque face, striking it down instantly. When Jeong-gyeom questions the velocity, the system confirms the default shipping speed is 60 km per h. Finally, Jeong-gyeom begins to understand what the system meant earlier by shipping speed. The system clarifies that he can increase his speed up to a maximum of 75 km per hour, but anything faster would require specific skill upgrades. Naturally, Jeong-gyeom asks how he can enhance these skills, and the system explains that upgrades are possible through the use of monostones. At that moment, Jeong-gyeom recalls the monster he recently defeated, realizing that in order to grow stronger, he'll need to continue hunting more creatures. Without hesitation, he prepares himself inside the facility. He first selects a pair of lightweight combat boots priced at around 50,000 won, followed by tactical pants costing 78,000 won. Once equipped, he also purchases a detailed map of the Seoul metropolitan area and a permanent marker. On the map, he circles the Gwangjin district and carefully highlights the surrounding areas in a strategic order. With his route established, he decides to begin from the nearest district and gradually make his way toward his ultimate destination, Ayeongju, where he hopes to reunite with his parents. Starting out from Gunpo without a car, Jeong-gyeom knows the journey will be long and difficult. Though far slower than a car or motorcycle, even a simple bicycle is priceless in a post-apocalyptic world. In this situation, it might as well be a Lamborghini. Mounting the bike, he pedals through the barren, ruined streets. After half an hour, night begins to fall, and Jeong-gyeom has already taken down nearly a dozen orcs. From these encounters, he reflects on an important lesson he has learned. But before he can fully process it, a new monster suddenly emerges and lunges at him. Reacting quickly, Jeong-gyeom retreats into his subspace, leaving the creature outside. From there, he activates his shipment ability, launching an axe at high velocity. The weapon strikes the monster's shoulder, wounding but not killing it. With the ability's 30-second cooldown and a 10-meter range limit, Jeong-gyeom realizes that although powerful, his skills still lack refinement. To truly progress, he'll need to gather more mana stones. Unbeknownst to him, Pax's ability holds more functions beyond shipment. As the monster searches for him, it suddenly notices movement. The axe, pulled back by the portal, flies once again, this time striking the creature squarely in the face, killing it instantly. This is the second hidden function of Pax's ability, product retrieval. It automatically recalls dispatched items, proving just as valuable as the original shipping ability. Jeong-gyeom immediately uses this retrieval function to claim the mana stone from the fallen monster. Still, he wonders why he can't simply retrieve the mana stone without first killing the beast. Pax explains that retrieval only works once the monster is dead, as the stone then belongs to its slayer. Accepting this, Jeong-gyeom exits his subspace and reveals another unsettling truth about this apocalyptic world: the orcs are not the only threat. There are also flying monsters, which will undoubtedly be even more difficult to hunt. As he contemplates this, distant cries for help echo across the darkened streets. The scene shifts to a man named Choi, frantically fleeing for his life. Exhausted and battered, each step he takes feels heavier than the last. Behind him, a winged creature swoops down, slamming into his back and hurling him violently to the ground. Another man trails close behind, but before he can reach Choi, the monster lands before him, cutting off his path. Its gaping, drooling jaws leave no doubt human flesh is its preferred prey. Yet strangely, the beast does not attack the man standing in front of it. Instead, it focuses solely on Choi, writhing helplessly on the ground. The man is bewildered by the creature's behavior, but realizes it has chosen Choi as its target, perhaps seeing him as the easier kill. Helpless and armed with nothing more than a small knife, he questions whether he can even distract it, let alone fight. Suddenly, the clear ring of a bicycle bell cuts through the tense silence. Startled, neither Choi nor his companion can make sense of the sound. But before they can react, they witness the winged monster struck by a powerful projectile. The sheer force sends the creature sliding across the ground, its attack abruptly interrupted. The beast collapsed instantly from a single strike of the axe, leaving both men frozen in disbelief. Jeong-gyeom rushed to check on them, but they remained speechless, their jaws slack as they struggled to comprehend what had just happened. The sight of someone on a bicycle bringing down a flying wyvern with nothing more than an axe seemed impossible. Their shock quickly gave way to gratitude, and they bowed their heads, asking if Jeong-gyeom was a soldier. Smiling with relief that they were unharmed, Jeong-gyeom simply pointed to his uniform. He explained that he wasn't a soldier at all, but an employee of Pax FC. The men stared at the company insignia on his gear, their astonishment deepening. To them, his composure and skill suggested years of military training. Even though he insisted otherwise, his actions spoke volumes. The idea that anyone could kill a wyvern with a single axe throw while riding a bicycle, no less, was beyond belief. If they hadn't witnessed it firsthand, they would have dismissed the feat as fantasy. As they continued talking, Jeong-gyeom was surprised to learn that the two men already knew about abilities. One admitted that he had awakened a minor ability himself, though it was nothing more than enhanced driving skills hardly useful in their current situation. Choi, on the other hand, laughed at his own misfortune, confessing he had yet to awaken any ability at all. Curious, Jeong-gyeom asked if there were other survivors nearby. Choi explained grimly that they were in Block C, which served as a logistics hub. Many people had gathered there for safety, but the area quickly became overrun with monsters. Most had been slaughtered or devoured, leaving perhaps only 10 to 15 survivors who had managed to take refuge in the underground terminal. He went on to explain that he and his companion had been scouting for a drivable route and scavenging supplies when the wyvern attacked them. The other man then suggested they continue their discussion elsewhere, inviting Jeong-gyeom to join them at their quarters on the 4th basement floor. That location, he said, had never been breached by monsters, making it one of the few places where they could rest without fear. He even offered food and snacks as a gesture of goodwill. Jeong-gyeom hesitated, tempted by the prospect of working vehicles, but remained cautious. He agreed to follow them, though he wasn't ready to fully trust strangers just yet. As they began walking away, Jeong-gyeom cast one final glance at the wyvern's corpse. Discreetly, he retrieved the mana stone from its body and slipped it into his subspace. Neither man had noticed, and that gave him a small comfort. If anything went wrong, he could always retreat into that hidden sanctuary. Before long, they arrived at the basement level, only to find another man standing over the body of a slain orc. Choi hurried forward, alarmed, and asked what had happened. The orc slayer explained calmly that the creature must have wandered in by chance. Luckily, it hadn't spotted anyone, and they managed to kill it quickly without injury. Still, the incident left everyone uneasy. If an orc could breach the area, perhaps it wasn't as safe as they believed. Jeong-gyeom, too, felt a pang of fear at how precarious their situation really was. His thoughts were interrupted when the slayer turned to him and asked who he was. Choi stepped in, proudly explaining that Jeong-gyeom was the one who had saved them from the wyvern. He added that Jeong-gyeom had once worked for PAX FC, and that his strength was extraordinarily powerful enough to slay a wyvern with a single throw. The revelation left the group astonished and curious about what sort of abilities Jeong-gyeom possessed. Just then, a woman came rushing over, overjoyed at the sight of him. Laughing and crying all at once, she began dancing in celebration, ecstatic that he had saved Yang-soo and Baengel. Her joy quickly spread, and soon others gathered around, showering Jeong-gyeom with praise and gratitude. Embarrassed by the attention, Jeong-gyeom waved it off modestly, insisting that he had only done what needed to be done. As the crowd continues to focus their attention on him, Choi steps in to disperse them, reminding everyone not to tease the young newcomer. At that moment, the orc slayer speaks up, explaining that the people gathered here have been working together for more than a decade. He emphasizes that Yang-soo and Baengel are like family to him. Filled with gratitude for saving them, he introduces himself as Lee Jin-mak, the center manager of the Daehan Express terminal. Bowing respectfully, he thanks Jeong-gyeom for rescuing his two close friends. Once the introductions are over, Jin-mak begins giving Jeong-gyeom a brief overview of their shelter. He explains that while complete safety can't be promised, life here is far more comfortable than outside. Thanks to the logistics center, they have a solid stockpile of food and water, and he encourages Jeong-gyeom to eat freely and make himself at home. He assures him that their supplies should last for a while, and if necessary, they can always retrieve more from the logistics center. But before he can continue, Yang-soo interrupts with shocking news. The logistics center has suddenly vanished. The group falls silent, stunned at the absurdity of the claim. Jin-mak quickly demands an explanation, and Choi confirms it, explaining that the entire building has literally disappeared. That, he says, is why they were being pursued by the wyvern. The others struggle to accept the idea, questioning how such an enormous structure could simply cease to exist. Though visibly shaken, Jin-mak eventually concedes that if terrifying monsters truly exist, then a vanishing building may not be so impossible. Jeong-gyeom, meanwhile, stays quiet, privately wondering whether the disappearance has any connection to his own subspace abilities. Trying to steady everyone's nerves, the manager urges them to remain focused. Whether or not the logistics center is gone, they must begin tunneling through. Staying where they are will only worsen their situation. He reminds the group that their time has simply come sooner than expected, and they need to start moving toward the tunnel immediately. The determined woman from earlier tries to rally the others as well, insisting that even without the logistics center, They must press forward and carve a path through. Jeong-gyeom turns to Jean Mak and asks what exactly forcing their way through entails. Jean Mak explains that while everyone has homes elsewhere, vehicles are vital for survival. However, the roads are all blocked. The northern route is cut off by a golf course, the eastern path is sealed with containers, and the southern Yangdong Expressway has been completely destroyed. The only viable exit is through the tunnel in the west, but unfortunately, a pack of wyverns has claimed it. Up until now, they've survived by raiding the logistics center, but with it gone, their only option is to break through the tunnel. The manager clarifies that Jeong-gyeom doesn't necessarily need to take that route. Since the blockages only affect vehicles, he could still escape on foot or by bicycle. But Jeong-gyeom insists that he also needs a vehicle, making the tunnel his best option. Jean Mak accepts his choice and tells him he's welcome to join them if he's prepared for the risk. Jeong-gyeom grins, agreeing to work together. Privately, however, he decides it's best to conceal his abilities for now. Although the group seems kind, he knows they've been through hardships and may not be entirely transparent about everything. Understanding their caution, he resolves to remain wary himself. Turning back to the manager, Jeong-gyeom requests to check out the tunnel and observe the wyverns firsthand. Outwardly, he claims he's simply scouting ahead, but in truth, he's eager to unleash his powers, eliminate the monsters, and gather more mana stones. The scene flashes back briefly to when Jeong-gyeom defeated several beasts, collecting 5 magic stones in the process. With these, he has managed to shorten the cooldown on his shipping ability to a mere 5 seconds. That's when Jeong-gyeom notices 3 brand new shipping abilities unlocked before him. The first is precise delivery, a function that locks onto a target and ensures a guaranteed hit. The second is simultaneous delivery, which allows him to send out 2 items at once. The third is automatic delivery, enabling designated items to be delivered automatically with flexible timing adjustments. All 3 sound incredible, but there's a catch: each one costs 10 mana stones. Jeong-gyeom can barely contain his excitement at the thought of trying them out, though he's still uncertain about the exact details of how automatic delivery will function in practice. At present, however, none of that dampens his mood. He grins broadly, thrilled with the mana stones he has already collected, and eager to gather even more during his upcoming scouting mission. Or at least, that's what he believes until reality quickly interrupts. His enthusiasm is cut short when he realizes he's stuck with Yong-soo, one of the people he rescued earlier. Puzzled and more than a little annoyed, Jeong-gyeom asks why he insists on tagging along. Yong-soo replies earnestly that it's far too dangerous to wander outside alone. Jeong-gyeom dryly reminds him that he was the very same person being chased around by a wyvern not long ago. Still, Yong-soo doesn't budge. He insists that it doesn't matter. He refuses to let Jeong-gyeom go out alone. Besides, he's completely confident that if danger comes again, Jeong-gyeom will save him just like before. Jeong-gyeom recalls that Yong-soo once mentioned awakening a driver's ability, so he decides to probe further. He asks if Yong-soo can see any sort of message window, or something similar that would confirm his ability. Yong-soo shakes his head. No, he hasn't seen any kind of system window, but he insists that deep down, he knows he's awakened something. It just hasn't fully manifested yet. This vague answer only makes Jeong-gyeom more uneasy. Night soon falls, and the 2 speed down a deserted road on their electric bike. Yong-soo handles the steering while Jeong-gyeom hangs on tightly, sweat dripping down his forehead as he watches the reckless driving. Yong-soo is piloting the bike with just one leg, wobbling dangerously as he tries to maintain balance. Alarmed, Jeong-gyeom demands to know why he's driving like that. Yong-soo casually explains that the road is crammed with abandoned cars, and visibility is poor. Before Jeong-gyeom can argue further, Yong-soo suddenly spots something ahead: a wyvern. The monstrous creature looms in the distance. Jeong-gyeom immediately shouts at him to stop. He can't see a thing in the dark. Sure enough, The wyvern's eyes glint as it notices them and begins to fix its gaze upon them menacingly. Panic creeps into Yong-soo's voice as he nervously asks what they should do. But before Jeong-gyeom can answer, a projectile slams into the wyvern with explosive force, killing it instantly. Yong-soo stares, stunned, unable to process what just happened. Meanwhile, Jeong-gyeom remains unnervingly calm. He tells Yong-soo not to look back and to stay focused on the road. While speaking, he discreetly retrieves the fallen mana stone and tucks it into his subspace. Not long after, Yong-soo notices a tunnel up ahead and abruptly slams on the brakes. The sudden stop jolts Jeong-gyeom, who starts to question him, but the reason becomes immediately clear. A swarm of monsters is crawling around the tunnel entrance. Terror grips Yong-soo. His face drains of color, and he's nearly paralyzed with fear. Jeong-gyeom can tell that he's on the verge of complete panic. As one of the creatures begins to advance toward them, Yong-soo is convinced it's over. Even with their electric bikes, there's no escaping such a large number of wyverns. With no other option, Jeong-gyeom realizes he must use his subspace ability. He quickly summons the system and dumps his mana stones, drastically reducing his cooldown time from 30 seconds down to just 5. Confused, Yong-soo asks frantically what Jeong-gyeom is doing, but he offers no explanation. The monsters close in. Their roars echo across the road as more converge on their location. At the last possible moment, Jeong-gyeom shouts, "Ship!" A projectile instantly drops from his subspace, striking the monster dead and saving them both. Yong-soo spins around in shock, eyes widening when he notices a strange portal materializing behind them. But Jeong-gyeom wastes no time. He scoops up the newly dropped stones and orders Yong-soo to stick close. Staying near him is the only way he can protect him. Yong-soo nods quickly, though he still has no idea what's really happening or why a logistics center seems to have appeared in the background. More monsters suddenly emerge, but Jeong-gyeom swiftly takes one down with his axes. As several more rush toward them, Yong-soo stumbles back in panic and without realizing falls straight into Jeong-gyeom's subspace. One of the beasts smashes headfirst into the barrier, while Yong-soo tumbles to the ground, gasping in shock. The creature regains its footing and charges again, but Jeong-gyeom slips fully into the subspace at the last second. The monster slams against the invisible wall once more, only this time Jeong-gyeom's axe whirls through the air and cuts it down cleanly. Young-go watched in awe, uncertain of what impressed him more, the sheer scale of the logistics center or the sight of the flying axis. But one thing was clear. To Jeong-gyeom, these so-called monsters were nothing more than minor annoyances. And this tunnel, which others viewed as a dangerous obstacle, seemed like little more than a trivial challenge he could sweep aside without effort. As Young-go reflected, he thought about how everyone back at the base relied on the delivery vehicle for both survival and food transport. That tunnel was supposed to be part of their escape route, yet even if they made it through, countless monsters still lurked outside. For Jeong-gyeom, however, the situation was different. To him, the vehicle was simply a means of transportation. He could face any threat without fear. Young-go even felt a pang of jealousy. With an ability like Jeong-gyeom's, he could reunite with his own family much faster. It made him wonder why someone with that kind of power even needed a vehicle in the first place. Then, unexpectedly, the monsters began retreating. Jeong-gyeom's eyes narrowed with curiosity. These creatures weren't charging blindly into death, they were smart enough to withdraw. As he gathered the mana stones left behind, Young-go noticed a strange blue stone hovering in the air. Curious, he asked what it was. Jeong-gyeom, slightly surprised, asked if he had never seen a mana stone before. Young-go admitted he hadn't. Calmly, Jeong-gyeom explained that he used them to enhance his abilities. That revelation finally made things click for Young-go, who realized why Jeong-gyeom hadn't bothered extracting the mana stone from the orc earlier. Young-go then remarked that with powers like Jeong-gyeom's, he could easily clear the tunnel on his own. Jeong-gyeom shook his head, explaining that he never intended to fight through the tunnel in the first place. His plan was to simply scout it, and if it looked manageable, pass through quietly without revealing too much. Embarrassed, Yeong-gyeom apologized for tagging along, but Jang-yeon reassured him. Without Yeong-gyeom, he wouldn't have even known the way here, so in truth, the driver had been more help than a hindrance. Still, he advised they head back quickly. The wyvern had retreated, but it could return at any moment. At that moment, Yeong-gyeom asked why Jang-yeon needed a vehicle in the first place. How far was he planning to travel? Jang-yeon replied that his journey was to reunite with his family, with his final destination being near Gangnam. That revelation surprised Yeong-gyeom. His own destination lay along the same route he needed to reach India. Hesitant but determined, Yeong-gyeom asked if it would be too much trouble to let him accompany Jang-yeon. Jang-yeon hesitated, but Yeong-gyeom pressed on, admitting that even if he somehow passed through the tunnel, he had little confidence he could make it home alive. His driving skills couldn't help in combat, but with Jang-yeon's power, he stood a real chance of survival. He promised he would help Jang-yeon reach Gangnam faster than anyone else, swearing he would never become a burden. He even offered to provide food along the journey. Jang-yeon considered this carefully. Yeong-gyeom's driving skills were indeed valuable, and more importantly, traveling with him might allow Jang-yeon to keep his own powers hidden. The fewer people who knew, the better. If word spread, others might try to use him or worse, eliminate him. Though perhaps he was overthinking, it was safer this way. Finally, Jang-yeon agreed to let Yeong-gyeom come along. Yeong-gyeom's face lit up with childlike excitement, as if he had just been handed a dream. Jang-yeon cautioned him, however, he would take care of clearing the tunnel, but Yeong-gyeom must keep his powers secret and ensure no one interfered. Yeong-gyeom eagerly agreed, vowing to make everyone cooperate and stay out of the way. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. Overcome with excitement, Yeong-gyeom immediately announced to everyone that Jang-yeon would clear the tunnel with his awakened abilities, and that all they needed to do was wait outside. Jang-yeon could only stare in disbelief. Yeong-gyeom had just revealed the very secret he wanted to keep hidden. The others were stunned, but quickly became excited at the prospect of witnessing Jang-yeon in action. Yeong-gyeom, oblivious, proudly repeated his claim. Frustrated, Jang-yeon cursed his luck. Now trapped in the spotlight, he realized he had no choice but to follow through. Stepping forward, he announced that by morning, the tunnel would be cleared and everyone could safely leave. In the back of his mind, he reasoned this might be the best choice anyway. At least with the group's food supply intact, things would remain calm for now. Once the supplies eventually run out, chaos could easily break loose. That's why it's wise to clear the tunnel now and make sure everyone remains safe. Just then, the manager approaches Jong-yeon. He explains that he has no intention of prying into Jong-yeon's abilities or asking about them. Instead, he simply wants to express his respect for Jong-yeon's decision to step forward and help everyone. As a gesture of gratitude, the manager offers some food from their reserves. The kindness catches Jong-yeon off guard, leaving him momentarily stunned. Such generosity feels overwhelming in a situation like this. The manager insists, explaining that since Jong-yeon risked his life to scout the tunnel, the very least they can do is provide him with food. Now that he is also volunteering to clear it, they feel indebted beyond measure. They apologize, admitting that all they can truly give him is their thanks. Jong-yeon shakes his head, saying that he acted for his own reasons and that they should keep their food for their families. But Yeong-gyeom steps forward, insisting that he accept it, reminding him that he, too, has a family to think about. Watching the group, Jong-yeon notices how eager everyone is to return to their loved ones. The sight fills him with both sadness and determination. He doesn't want to disappoint them. By the next morning, the group reaches the tunnel entrance. Jong-yeon instructs everyone to stay back, then begins pedaling inside, resolved to clear the path and return safely. As he ventures deeper, the shadow of monsters begins to appear. Before the battle unfolds, the story flashes back to his childhood. A younger Jong-yeon sits with a swollen eye after bickering with his sister. He complains to his father, which quickly sparks another quarrel with his sister. ending in the two of them wrestling before their dad. Their father, instead of scolding them harshly, smiles faintly and comments on how close they seem. He admits that he grew up an only child and always envied the bond siblings share. He tells them that despite their constant fighting, they'll one day come to understand just how precious family truly is. At that moment, their mother bursts into the room, sparking a lively argument of her own with their father. The room fills with noise and laughter, and young Jeong-gyeom feels a deep warmth, the unmistakable comfort of family. The scene shifts back to the night before. As Jeong-gyeom recalled those memories, he couldn't ignore the hopeful faces of the people longing to reunite with their families. He knew they were depending on him to clear the way. That night was filled with anticipation, with everyone waiting for Jeong-gyeom to secure their path. Well past midnight, Yongo stirs awake to use the bathroom. When he notices Jeong-gyeom's absence, he grows uneasy and asks the guards on patrol if they've seen him. They explain that Jeong-gyeom stepped out earlier, saying he needed some fresh air. Curious, Yongo heads further ahead, scanning the area, until he finally spots him. "Why can't you just sleep like the rest of us?" Yongo asks. Jeong-gyeom answers calmly, "I can't sleep here." As Yongo looks past him, his eyes widen in shock. Before him stands a vehicle loaded to the brim with food and supplies. Confused, he demands to know why Jeong-gyeom is giving away so much. Jeong-gyeom replies casually that he only packed half the supplies into it, so it wouldn't be too heavy, but assures him it's still more than enough for everyone. Yongo is stunned, but when Jeong-gyeom mentions that this is the last vehicle he had to load, the realization strikes him hard. If this is the final one, then the other 15 vehicles must also be filled with the same staggering amount of provisions. Jeong-gyeom quickly tells him to keep this a secret from the others. Still trying to process everything, Yongo asks what will be left for their own journey if he gives away this much. Jeong-gyeom responds with the same calm composure, assuring him they still have plenty left. Yongo can only stare, dumbfounded. The sheer scale of the resources Jeong-gyeom has already handed out feels greater than what you'd find in an entire logistics center. Jeong-gyeom can't begin to comprehend just how much stock he still has left. Back in the present, he's seen cutting through monsters with ease, as if it's nothing more than routine work. While fighting, his thoughts drift toward how much easier everything would be if he could store people inside his subspace and carry them to safety. Unfortunately, the system quickly shuts that idea down. With his current subspace level, it's impossible. If he manages to advance to subspace level 2, however, he would be able to hold up to 20 people. To achieve that, he needs a minimum of 100 mana stones. After a quick calculation, Jeong-gyeom counts roughly 40 monsters remaining, with a handful already fleeing. It's not nearly enough to reach the next level. He realizes he'll need to find another opportunity to gain the experience he needs, especially if he ever wants to protect his family by bringing them into his subspace. Suddenly, his attention sharpens. Among the scattering monsters, one stands out a stronger, more menacing version of a wyvern. Its presence radiates authority, unlike anything he's faced so far. Jeong-gyeom can't even be certain what he's looking at. Whatever it is, it feels like a boss-class threat. Meanwhile, outside the tunnel, the waiting group grows restless. Anxiety weighs heavily on them as they wonder whether Jeong-gyeom has made it out alive. Then, at last, he emerges calmly pedaling his bike as though returning from a casual ride. His uniform, stained with blood, tells a different story. The group holds its breath until they see him smile, and then relief bursts into cheers and laughter. Their mission is finally complete, and now it's time for everyone to part ways and reunite with their families. Before they leave, they thank the manager for staying by their side and wish him a safe trip home. Jeong-gyeom, however, leaves them with a cryptic hint. If they run into any trouble, they should check the cargo hold. There's a surprise waiting for them. Intrigued but eager to move on, they climb into their trucks and begin the slow crawl through traffic. Once they clear the tunnel, they wave their final goodbyes before heading off in separate directions. Inside one of the trucks, Jeong-gyeom rides in the passenger seat, his mind lingering on the monster he spotted. Was it truly a wyvern? Or perhaps a leader, or simply an adult version of the creatures they've been fighting all along? He doesn't know, and the uncertainty gnaws at him. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted by a sickening crunch beneath the tires. Glancing down, they realize they've run over scattered corpses. The sound of bones shattering fills the air, and the driver's expression twists with sorrow. Even Jeong-gyeom notices the regret on his friend's face, but there's no room for hesitation. The road ahead is littered with wreckage and bodies, leaving them with no choice but to push forward. Jeong-gyeom reflects bitterly that if his military discharge had been delayed by just 3 months, he might have been lying among those same corpses. The devastation is even worse than he imagined, with monsters still feeding on human remains. Suddenly, Jeong-gyeom's voice snaps him out of his thoughts. Looking ahead, Jeong-gyeom sees the road is blocked. Young Seo points out barbed wire stretched across the bridge, likely set up by the military to keep something contained. He suggests finding another bridge to cross, but Jeong-gyeom notices movement at the far end of the blockade. A closer look reveals something chilling, a new type of monster they've never encountered before. It becomes painfully clear why the military built the barricade. Panic creeps into Jeong-gyeom's voice as he considers turning back, but Jeong-gyeom sees it differently. To him, this is the perfect chance to gather the monastones he needs and advance his subspace level. Spotting a narrow sidewalk along the road, boxed in by barriers, Jeong-gyeom quickly comes up with a plan. He urges Jeong-gyeom to push the truck through the pedestrian path, insisting they can make it through without retreating. His tone carries a spark of excitement, but Jeong-gyeom is horrified at the recklessness of the idea. The situation escalates when an orc suddenly emerges from the distance, scattering the pack of mutant hounds nearby. The monsters clearly have no allegiance to each other. Though the orc towers over them in raw strength and size, the mutated hounds possess overwhelming numbers. The poor orc never stood a chance against such a ravenous pack. The mutant hounds descended upon it without mercy, their hollow maws tearing through flesh with a frenzy that defied reason. Blood sprayed and chunks of meat were flung in every direction, painting the ground in carnage. Our two protagonists could do nothing but watch as the brutal scene unfolded before them. Young was truly terrified. Even though he trusted in the remarkable abilities of his companion, he found himself doubting the sanity of the plan. To him, the idea of charging straight ahead seemed utterly suicidal. Hesitantly, he asked if Johnny really intended to cross the bridge. But Johnny, calm and unwavering, radiated absolute confidence in his skills. To him, the task was far simpler than Young's fear-stricken mind imagined. As Jeong-gyeom struggled to muster some courage, Johnny suddenly turned and posed a strange question. Had he ever heard of a game where 3 different races waged war against one another? He was referring to a space strategy game called Stark. Since Young was older, he wasn't familiar with it, but Johnny went on to explain anyway. In that game, players could customize maps, adjust settings, and build scenarios for fun. His favorite mode was one where the player had to defend against endless waves of monsters using only limited units and clever terrain. To Johnny, their current predicament felt uncannily similar. Young didn't really understand why Johnny was talking about games at such a time, but it didn't matter. His role was simple: follow instructions, and the first step was clear. He was to back the car up to the barbed wire barrier, tear it down, and create as much noise as possible to lure the mutant hounds away from their grisly feast. Once that distraction was set, it was Johnny's turn. Activating his system, he unlocked a skill he hadn't originally planned to use but realized was perfect for the situation auto-shipping. He spent 10 monastones to activate it, then instructed Pax to invest the remaining stones to maximize its speed. Pax obeyed immediately, boosting the delivery speed to a staggering 100 kilometers per hour. With everything ready, Johnny boldly called out to the mutant hounds, daring them to chase him after their meal. The pack lunged forward, but before they could get close, A massive double-door refrigerator appeared out of nowhere, rocketing toward them and obliterating their ranks. The hounds were thrown into chaos. This was no longer their hunt, it was a slaughter. And it didn't stop there. More refrigerators came crashing down one after another. Within seconds, Johnny had collected 12 mana stones, his face lighting up with delight. His upgraded shipping system was working flawlessly, delivering not only speed but precision. Initially, he had planned to rely on throwing axes, but the refrigerator proved far more effective. From his earlier tests, Johnny had discovered that the precision delivery skill didn't perfectly track targets, it only adjusted the trajectory slightly to match their movements. Against the swift mutant hounds, an axe flying at 100 kilometers per hour could still be dodged. But a refrigerator, with its sheer bulk and crushing weight, was a far deadlier weapon. Even a grazing hit was enough to flatten multiple enemies at once. The auto-shipping feature made the process effortless. Johnny no longer needed to monitor the battlefield closely, the system itself dealt with incoming threats automatically. He could almost afford to relax as the furious hounds threw themselves forward, only to be swatted down by the relentless hail of flying appliances. Jeong-gyeom, however, was stunned. When he finally glanced back, his jaw nearly dropped. He had always thought Johnny's strength lay in throwing axes, but what he saw now went far beyond his imagination. Refrigerators, dozens of them, were soaring through the air every 2 seconds. The sheer number was beyond comprehension. Young couldn't even begin to understand why a logistics center would stockpile so many of these appliances. A thought struck him. Perhaps Johnny's system replenished supplies infinitely, much like how his axes seemed to be retrieved and reused. But refrigerators, the concept was absurd. He stood frozen, unable to process what was happening, until Johnny casually strolled up to him and asked if he wanted something to eat. That simple question snapped him back, and Yong-soo pieced together his suspicions. Tentatively, he asked if Johnny's supply was actually infinite. The question caught Johnny slightly off guard. He had assumed Yong-soo had figured this out long ago. In reality, Yong-soo had believed Johnny was merely retrieving the axes after each use. The thought of an endless arsenal had never crossed his mind. Johnny explained that, yes, the axes were retrieved, but only so they wouldn't clutter the battlefield or accidentally harm someone later. The truth was far greater. His system did indeed allow an infinite supply of certain items. Even after hearing the explanation, Yong-soo still struggled to wrap his head around the idea. The concept of infinite resources was simply too much for him to accept so easily. Once Jayan had collected his thoughts, he asked Yong-soo again if he wanted something to eat. After such an emotionally draining day, Yong-soo felt that a simple Coke Zero and a donut would be more than enough. As they sat quietly eating, the automated delivery system behind them continued to scatter the mutant hounds with relentless precision. Yong-soo couldn't help but feel embarrassed for having underestimated Jayan's abilities, as well as his own naivety. Still, gratitude outweighed the shame. Even if the food came from an endless stockpile, he was thankful for the meal. Jayan, in turn, was glad to share. He told Yong-soo that if he ever needed anything, he only had to ask. After all, Jayan had nearly everything in stock. But Yong-soo wasn't the type to lean too heavily on another's generosity. Jayan had already done more than enough clearing the path of monsters and helping him reach home faster. Once they crossed the bridge, Yong-soo would be only an hour away from his house. Hearing this, Jayan felt relieved that his friend would soon be reunited with his family. Yet, he could clearly sense Yong-soo's lingering worry about what awaited him there. Yong-soo silently prayed his family was safe. Jayan understood the feeling all too well, his own parents and sisters constantly weighing on his mind. Wanting to give his friend something, Jayan glanced at Yong-soo's tattered clothes and realized he couldn't go home like that. With the hounds still being dealt with, they had a moment to spare. The only question was what style Yong-soo would prefer. Though uneasy about receiving even more help, Yong-soo didn't turn it down. Jayan had exactly what he needed, aviator sunglasses and a sleek jacket, the perfect outfit for a top-tier driver navigating an apocalyptic wasteland. By the time the last few hounds were taken care of, Yong-soo's new look had given him a surge of confidence. Paired with his trust in the truck's durability, he was ready to move. With precision and speed that would put a Formula One driver to shame, he floored the gas pedal. Jaehyun barely managed to hold on as the vehicle surged forward. The remaining hounds were no match for their breakneck pace. The truck thundered down the cracked, narrow roads as if they were smooth highways. Jaehyun clung on desperately, begging Yong-soo to slow down, but it was useless. The ride was so wild he felt on the verge of being sick. Thankfully, the reckless dash didn't last long. Within minutes, they reached their destination, though what awaited them was far from what Yong-soo had hoped for.